Hey everybody, welcome back to Save Your Game. This is Nathan, and today we're starting a video series on Bardsung, which is a game I backed on Kickstarter a while ago and just received this past weekend. And I thought we'd go through the combat tutorial together. Bardsung does this really neat thing that a lot of games are doing these days, which is teaching you how to play the game as you go. So instead of drinking from a fire hose and needing to just learn every rule before you play, they let you play and learn at the same time. So if you open up the rules of the game, you'll notice that there is a combat tutorial, and I have set that up for us to play today. I always find it really helpful to visualize and see things and learn from videos. So I'm going to try my hand at this combat tutorial, and hopefully it'll help you learn how to play this beautiful and exciting new dungeon crawler from Steamforged Game, Bardsung. So, as you can see, I've opened up a good number of the components. These are all the components that you need to play the combat tutorial, apart from a bunch of the extra miniatures, which my son was playing with and having a good old time. And you can see over here, there are some kind of lead cards to the packs, which they open this in first. So you actually don't have to open up everything. Punching token sheets and getting cards out and look at them is one of my favorite things about getting a new game, but you have to hold off on this if you don't want to be overwhelmed, and just get out a few things. So what we have here, I've set up 3 of the suggested heroes. I have a lot of the other heroes that were stretch goals in Bardsung, and I'm not playing with them just yet, although I am very eager to try them out as well. But we've taken 3 heroes and the suggested enemy type here for the combat tutorial, and we've set everything up as instructed. There are a ton of dungeon tiles in this game, and when you play the campaign, when you play a longer session, you're gonna kind of make your way across this huge board here, and your object is really just to get to the other end of the dungeon and try not to get sucked into traps and a ton of combat along the way. But for this combat tutorial, we just need this particular center tile. I've put our 3 heroes out there. Each player gets to pick a hero from the starting heroes, and then you put out a brigand kind of clockwise from this blue space, one for every hero that you're playing with. But before we dive in too much, I want to go ahead and give you a rundown of what we have here in terms of our player characters. Each player can choose a hero to play with. This is the card for Stoneheart, and you'll notice that each one of these heroes has a 2-sided card. This side helps you grab the things that you need to begin play, including the starting abilities, the starting equipment, and which characteristics they get bonuses for. So you'll see here that the abilities that Stoneheart begins with are Balance, Strike, and Backswing. We also typically get a 3rd starting ability called Helping Hand, but the combat tutorial instructs us to just start with those 2 as we learn how abilities work. So you'll see that everyone can also get one of these really awesome plastic trays for all of your abilities, equipment, and characteristics, and I've just put the 3rd ability here underneath. Once you've started and you've gathered all of your equipment and abilities, you flip the card over so you can easily see the stats and the special ability that Stoneheart has. And I've done the same for 3 different heroes, so you can see them here. Quickly, let me tell you about the different characteristics that each hero will have. You'll notice that each of these heroes has 6 of the same characteristics. They are as follows: strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. And these are pretty straightforward if you're familiar with RPG games. There's also a number of stats on each card, and they do different things. Of course, you got the name at the top. Starting on the left column there, the footprint icon is your speed, how many spaces you can move. You've also got a resilience stat and a grit stat. Your resilience is the modifier you use when you're rolling to defend an enemy attack, and the grit number is the number of wound cards that you have to earn in order to be defeated. And this is a cooperative game, so once any hero is fallen, you lose the game. So you want to protect any and all of your heroes. On the right side there, you've got 2 different icons, 2 different stats. The first one on the top there is an attack range. So Stoneheart has a range of 0, meaning she's a melee character. She's got to hang out in the same space as an enemy in order to attack them. And you've also got a damage dice. So once you roll a hit with a d20 and add your attack modifier, you would then roll that particular dice, in this case being a d8, to see if the hit is a critical or not. I'll also give you a quick rundown here of all the ability cards that you are encouraged to use in the combat tutorial. You've of course got a name here at the top, and then a lot of different icons. Most of these cards are similar in layout, but the different icons are what you have to learn in order to understand how the game works. First and foremost, in the top left there is an icon that tells you whether this is an attack or a skill. Most of the abilities that you begin with here in the tutorial combat mission are just attacks. The icon for skills looks a little bit like this. You can see this in the rulebook. That's this one over here on the steadfast card. That's the skill icon. Moving on, it tells you what kind of attack it is, and this is a physical attack. There are also magic attacks, which the icon for that is the second one you see there on Wildshell's Poltergeist card. The next icon you'll see is the ability, or the characteristic, excuse me, that is tied to that particular ability. So you'll use that modifier, if you have one, to determine different things that happen after you use the ability. You've also got what's called an attack profile, which is down here. This tells you what happens, what you inflict or not, based on if you hit or crit when you use this particular ability. So you roll to hit, and then after you roll to hit, you'll use your damage die to see if you get past that enemy's toughness. And if you do, then you crit. If you roll a 20 on a d20 for an attack roll, you automatically crit, similar to tabletop RPGs, or pen and paper RPGs, I should say. And if you crit, you get to inflict 2 wounds instead of just 1 with this particular balanced strike. The bottom icons tell you a few things as well. The left one here, the swirl, tells you that it is an active ability, meaning you have to use one of your actions on your turn to use it. There are some abilities that are passive, so they would just help you in any instance and you wouldn't have to use an action. This also, on the far right over here, tells you what level this card is, and then next to that is how much XP you need as you go through the game to level up this card. There's also kind of a blank gray space here, which you see. That'll tell you any special instructions for the skill, if they have any. For instance, over here, the backswing, which is Stoneheart's other starting ability, has some text that allows you to do something else. I'll just read it here. If this attack hits, after resolving the effects, apply the same effects to another enemy in the same zone. So she gets to kind of hit 2 enemies with 1 swing if possible. And lastly, another thing you'll notice here about this particular card is that 4th bubble is full up here on the top, and that is the fate icon, meaning this particular ability has to be, you have to expend one of your fate tokens, which are up here on the fate token track, in order to use it. Another thing to note about some of the starting cards, especially in the realm of your equipment, most of the equipment doesn't have any special text on it. The exception here, since I've chosen Wildshell as one of my starting heroes, is that there is a special ability that can be triggered at the start of his turn. He puts out a particular token type that he can use for abilities down the line. Each hero also has a special way that they can resolve fate and get fate tokens back as we navigate through the dungeon. So down at the bottom of our play area on this massive board, I keep mentioning the size because it hangs off my table, which I've never had a game do. This is the marching order track, and you'll notice each of our heroes has a particular card used for initiative, and each enemy type is going to have a card used for initiative. This card that's in the marching order for each enemy is also their stat block as well. And I'll run down each and every one of the icons you'll see here. There's some similar ones, but also a few different things to note as well. You see a movement score that's similar to the movement icon you see on your hero cards and the player areas, but you've also had this skull icon here, which this is the toughness. This is the number that you have to meet on the damage die that you roll after you hit in order to score a critical hit on this enemy. So you'll roll your damage die, for instance. We'll go back to Stoneheart. Remember, her damage die was a d8. You roll a d8, and you'll have to roll at least a 4 on that die to enact a critical hit. If it's not greater than 4, then the roll just counts as a hit. Also on the side there, you've got grit, and this is what happens when an enemy has suffered 2 wounds. And you'll see here that there's a skull and crossbones icon. That means the brigand goes to the hereafter after he gets hit with 2 wounds. Each enemy type also has an attack profile. You'll see here that there's a couple different icons. Some of them will be familiar. They can only hit. They don't have any kind of crit attack for this particular enemy. So if they hit, they inflict a wound. Also, that target icon there is their range. You'll notice that is the same icon as the range for the heroes, so they have to be in the same space as a hero in order to hit. They've also got an icon down here, which shows what type of enemy they are. These are like goblin type enemies, I believe it is. And any special rules would go in here. That's similar to your abilities that are blank at this point. And then this is the enemy type, or I should say it's called the behavior trait. This particular type of enemy is a ferocious enemy. So you'll grab a kind of an AI card for each type of enemy that you have represented in your marching order, this one being particularly ferocious. So you just go down each of these traits, and the first time you can enact one, you do that for each enemy, and you only do that one time. These are kind of grouped in this kind of gold parenthesis here, and that means you go do what I just said. You go down the line. There are some AI or trait cards, I should say, that have mandatory behavior on them, and we don't have to worry about that for the combat tutorial. Typically, when you establish the marching order for each round that you're going to play in Bardsung, you would just shuffle all enemy and hero cards together. However, the combat tutorial instructs us to put the brigand at second place. When we move on to subsequent rounds, though, we'll shuffle them all together as you do normally. When an enemy type goes, you take a turn for every single one of the enemies that are represented on the board. So when we get to the second place on the marching order track, we would start taking a turn with every brigand that we have a figure for. And how you do so is actually kind of interesting. You'll see this massive compass on the top corner of the board there, and we start at the farthest north enemy in the dungeon tile that we're engaged on and continue to go clockwise with each enemy until everyone gets a turn. Perhaps the most important number on each enemy card is this number in the top left here. That is what's called the target number. For the brigand, it's 9, as you can see. And this number is used in a couple different ways. First and foremost, when your heroes are taking a turn and they're trying to hit the brigand to enact wounds, they want to roll to hit a 9. If they meet or exceed that number, then it's a successful attack. Also, when the brigand is attacking your heroes, this is the number you want to roll and add your defense bonus, as you'll see there with the shield icon. And if you exceed that target number once again when you're defending, then their attack misses you. So the target number is pretty important there. So without further ado, I believe we're ready to begin our heroes' turns in the combat tutorial of Bardsung. Before we do, I always love reading flavor text, and so I'll do that now. Arriving in town. For many moons now, you've heard tales of woe from this region. First only as the odd story told by a bitter merchant, bemoaning lost goods stolen by bandits. But as the months continued, the stories became more and more frequent, and steadily more concerning. Tales of entire villages being attacked and pillaged, the inhabitants struggling to fight off organized groups of bandits as their friends and family were dragged off into the night. It was not long before you resolved to journey here, not only for the potential of gold and glory, but to appease a troubled conscience. These people deserve a better life than one under a shroud of terror. The town is quiet when you arrive. Strange, for the sun has not long set, and even sleepy villages like this one entertain lively evenings. But as your footsteps take you through the empty streets, there's little movement beyond the occasional door creaking open and shut in the wind, and jagged blankets of sleet as the wind frisks the snow-capped buildings. Eventually, your path leads to the Five Corners Tavern, a surprisingly large and well-appointed building akin to what you might expect in a much more developed settlement. Inside is as lifeless as the desolate streets, and suddenly a measure of doubt creeps into your minds. Perhaps there was an attack which claimed the village whilst you've been on the road, and you're too late. Or, what if the stories that brought you here had been delayed so many months that this place has long become a lonely ghost town? You push the unwelcome thoughts away. Such fears are not for mighty heroes. Even if they prove to be true, then retribution shall be visited upon the bandits that have brought such woe upon the goodly people of this hamlet. Yet before any further search can be undertaken or righteous oath sworn, the peace is broken. Raucous laughing cuts through the air, quickly followed by splintering glass as stones pelt the building. Moments later, several figures burst across the threshold, wearing heavy cowls not to stave off the weather, but to hide their identities as cutthroats most foul. It's time to bear steel and drive these villains away. You're eager to see justice done this evening. Okay, so let's begin. As you can see, first up in the marching order is our Nightfeather, and we have a couple options we can do on their turn. Let's grab their ability cards and see what they have to offer. They have a range of 0, meaning they have to be in the same space as an enemy in order to roll an attack. They also have an isolated target skill, which is if this hero critically hits an enemy that is the only enemy in a zone, replenish 1 fate. As of right now, we've got all 3 of our fates intact. So the 2 options we have on our turn in terms of actual attack abilities are a taunt card and a piercing strike. So before we do this, we'd have to move into a space, and our move is 3. We can move pretty good. We have 1 defense and 4 hit points. So we have to keep that in mind. We're kind of a nimble, roguish character, but we're not super tanky, so we have to be careful about that. So let's think about what we want to do. I think perhaps we go and engage the person in front of us. And just begin to use one of these 2 attacks here. So you'll notice on our ability cards, the characteristic that's attributed to both of our particular abilities here is our dex, and we have a +2 dex. So when we roll to do these attacks, we can add our +2 dex modifier. So let's do that. We're going to move straight ahead 2 spaces, or zones, is what they're called in this game, and we'll engage with this brigand right here. Now let's see which of these we'd like to do. For taunt, if this attack hits after resolving the effects, the target can be placed in the same zone as this hero. Oh, interesting. Okay. If the target is the only enemy in the zone, add 2 to the damage roll for a piercing strike. So these are our action icons. So we have to spend our second action from our turn in order to do them. For now, let's go ahead and do our piercing strike, which is interesting. You'll notice here in the attack profile that something can actually happen if we miss. We'll see what we get to do if that happens, though, because we'll have to do it as well on a hit. So piercing strike, we're going to roll our dice and add +2 from our dex, and if the target is the only enemy in the zone, add +2. Okay, so let's put that back over here. Okay, so let's grab a d20 and go ahead and roll to see if the Nightfeather hits the brigand they're engaged with. We're looking again for the target number. We want to roll a 9. All right, so we got a 13, and we're going to add our dex bonus for a total of 15. We definitely hit. Let's go ahead and roll the damage die, which for the Nightfeather is a d6. We want to surpass a 4, the toughness score of the brigand, to see if it is a crit or not. Here we go. It's a 1. So it's not a crit, it's just a hit. Now you'll notice, since we use the piercing strike, we have something that happens here If we hit, which is actually the same as if we miss, we don't enact any wounds, but we can hang out in another space. We can jump out of the space. And I also forgot, if the target is the only enemy in the zone, we add +2 to the damage roll because of Piercing Strike. It would have just been a 3, which still does not surpass the toughness. But we can disengage, which I think we'll do. We'll bounce back to an adjacent space. This icon here is the dodge icon. It's that little swirly icon. A crit is really awesome, which is 2 wounds, and then a dodge, and a miss is just a dodge. So we're just zipping around the battlefield, being really hard to hit, as you would imagine a crow-like rogue would be. So that's it for Nightfeather's turn, and the game instructs us to turn the card on its side and move on to the next initiative, which, wouldn't you know it, is the Brigands. We'll take a look at what we have here on the battlefield in terms of Brigands. We still have 3 alive. They are ferocious, so we'll take a look at their trait card, and we'll choose the northernmost enemy on the map and begin with him. First trait he would do in this particular order is to attack an enemy, for him an enemy, but a hero for our terminology's sake, in the same space. We don't have any heroes in the same zone, so the next thing we do, we'll move down to charge, which means he'll move up to his movement, which in this case is 2, and then attack an enemy in an unengaged zone. So we know that he can get to all of them because he's got 2 zone movement, and the rules tell us if there's a tie or if there's anything that would kind of keep you from knowing exactly what to do on the behavior trait card, you always pick the hero with the highest initiative, which in this case is going to be our Nightfeather who just went. So we're going to move this Brigand over to his zone. He's going to charge in and he will attack. So when we're attacked, we make a defense roll and then we add our toughness. Or I'm not sure it's called toughness. What is it for the heroes again? Let's see. Our resilience, that's right. We're gonna add, I was trying to get the terminology right. So we'll make a roll with a d20, we'll add our resilience, and if we have a 9 or greater, it is a miss. Let's see what happens. All right, it's a 9, so the Brigand misses us. And that's it for his turn. Next, we're going to go in clockwise order, so we'll start with this guy. We'll check on his behavior here. There's no heroes in the same zone, so he's going to charge to a hero in an unengaged zone, meaning he wouldn't first and foremost come and overwhelm us. As the Nightfeather, he would probably move. He can't get to Stoneheart, so he would move up 2 spaces and engage the Wildshell. So same thing, we're gonna be attacked because an attack happens if a charge is taking place. But this time we're adding the Wildshell's resilience, which as you can imagine is much bigger because we're a turtle. And that's 3. So again, I want to beat a 9. We got a 9 again. 9 plus 3 is 12. We're good there. Lastly, we'll have the same behavior because we're all the same enemy type here in the combat tutorial. And this last Brigand, I think, would charge up to Stoneheart. And same thing, they're going to attack. And we'll add her resilience, which this time is a 2. So here we go. I want to beat a 9. 3. Oh, that is a miss. So if that's the case, we actually got hit this time. So we'll take a wound card up here and add it down near her player card, showing that she has indeed been wounded, and she's got 5 health, so she's doing okay, but that's the first time we've been hit. Now that each and every Brigand is gone, their turn is ended, and we'll turn their card to the side. Next up in the marching order is the Stoneheart. So let's take a look at her ability cards and see what we can do here. She's got a back swing, which is really something you want to do if there's more than one enemy engaged with you in the same zone, and also a balanced strike. So I think we'll use one of our actions to go ahead and do a balance strike against the Brigand in our space. She doesn't even have to move. She's going right there from the get-go. So what we need to do is now we'll roll a strength roll, which we get a +2 in, and see if we hit or crit with a balanced strike. Again, this target number is what we're going for. Always want to get a 9 in this particular case. We got a 15 plus a 2 is 17. Yeah, we hit. Now let's roll our damage dice. In this particular case is a D8, which is the diamond. I know that from being a ranger in D&D. Most bows are D8s. And we'll see if we can exceed the toughness of 4 to actually crit. And if we do, we will actually take the first Brigand out. So let's see what we get here. All right, max damage for an 8, which means we crit. On a crit with the balanced strike, we deal 2 wounds. And as we know, because of this particular icon here, once this Brigand takes 2 wounds, he is dead. So first blood there for Stoneheart. I guess that's not entirely true. First death, because she got hit, but you understand. All right, so we have 1 action left, and I think what we want to do is actually, we're going to move into another zone. We're going to protect our slightly squishy rogue bird and move into that zone, and then go from there. There's no limit, the rules say, to how many figures can be in a zone. All right, so now that we've completed Stoneheart's turn, we turn her card in marching order to its side, and we get to now be our turtle friend, the Wildshell. So Wildshell has some magical attacks. You'll remember that this icon here and here denotes that they are magic attacks, not physical attacks, which is the icon you see here. So that means we have just some fun things to learn that are a little bit different than what we've been doing. Also, you remember that our driftwood staff, this symbol means it's actually a piece of armor, does something. So we'll read that now. At the start of this hero's turn, place up to 3 ghost tokens in the same area within 5 zones. At the start of each of the hero's turns, discard any ghost tokens still on the playing area, then place new tokens. So ghost tokens are these tokens right here that have candles on them. And I think we'll put them in this area with our friends. And then that is tied to our special ability that allows us to replenish fate, but we shouldn't have to worry about it right now. Let's look at the 2 abilities we have as Wildshell. They both are actions, and they both are magic attacks tied to our charisma. Or, no, I think that's our intelligence up here. Can't remember exactly what it's called at the moment. Curse and Poltergeist. Curse only enacts damage on a crit. That's the same for Poltergeist, but we do get to push if we hit with that. We also have some special text here. If the attack hits an enemy, they suffer either 2 different abilities, and the action may be used twice per turn. This action may be used twice per turn. Wow, okay. So I think that might be the way to go. Since we have 2 particular enemies out on the board, and we can use it twice. Let's look at those icons real quick and see what they do. Okay, so these are actually conditions that we can inflict with different kinds of attacks. The particular conditions that we can inflict with Curse are Weaken, which is this broken sword, and Bane, which is the broken bone. And also, these conditions will have something to tie to our particular special ability here for replenishing fate. And I reread this card a little bit, and it says we can place up to 3 ghost tokens in the same area within 5 zones. So I think they're calling this the area, and the zones are the smaller subsections. So we're going to spread out these ghost tokens to the 2 different enemies we see within 5 zones. And of course, we don't need this one really because there's another enemy there. But if we're going to do Curse, we get to inflict either Weaken or Bane. Weaken means that we get advantage on our defense roll if we're attacked by the weakened enemy. Bane means that the enemy would be attacked with advantage. So it's a little bit like Bane and Blessed in Dungeons & Dragons if you're familiar with them. So now let's go ahead and do our attack roll. And make sure I read this right. If the attack hits an enemy, they suffer either Bane or Weaken, and this action may be used twice per turn. You can use the action usability twice, but you can never typically do the same action card twice in those two actions. This is the exception. Curse can be used 2 times in 1 turn. And I think we'll do that in order to weaken the 2 enemies that we see in our combat tutorial. So if we hit, we can enact a couple of these conditions. So we're going to go ahead and roll against the enemy in our same space. He's within our range of 2, and see if we can hit that particular brigand that we're engaged with. We will get to add our +2 intelligence because you see that on the curse card, and if we crit, we'll inflict a wound. So here we go. Let's see if we hit, looking for a 9. So this roll plus a 2 is 9. Just barely hit. Let's see if we crit. The damage die for the Wildshell is just a measly little D4, and we have to roll perfectly, max damage in order to crit, but we'll see what happens. We got it. We got a crit on this particular brigand. Now let's go back to the curse card. If this attack hits an enemy, they suffer either Weaken or Bane. Let me go ahead and weaken this guy. And we could use Soul Sear here, but all of our fate is unspent. So when an enemy in the same zone as a ghost token gains a condition, replenish that fate. Now, that was a hit and a crit, so we also are going to inflict a wound on this particular enemy. So grab our wound tokens. So he's weakened, he's got ghost tokens, he's got all sorts of stuff going on there. And then we'll do it again. We'll try to hit the other character that is fighting us, the other brigand, who is in the same space as a ghost token, but again, that doesn't matter. But if we hit him, we'll either be able to Bane or weaken him as well. And then if we crit, he'll get a damage. So let's go ahead and roll. Trying to get a 9 here. All right, we got a 10. So we will hit this character as well, this brigand. Let's roll our damage die. That's a 3. So we're not enacting the crit, which would be the only way we could put a wound on that particular character, but we can weaken or Bane him. And just for fun, since we'll see the other condition in play, let's add the Bane to him since we weakened the other character. And there we go. There's 2 actions for the Wildshell. All right, so here at the end of a full turn of Bardsung in the combat tutorial, everyone has gone in the marching order. So we're going to gather up all the cards. We'll shuffle them again. And then we'll put them out here in a second. We're in pretty good shape. This feels like I'm getting it. I like this tutorial where they don't add too much to it. The next tutorial we'll do is an exploration tutorial. And that allows us to understand what the third action you could possibly do on your turn is, which I believe is just the explore action. And we'll probably do a video for that one too, because I'm enjoying going through this game with you. All right, first up in the marching order, we've got Stoneheart. Then we've got Nightfeather. Then the Wildshell. I promise I didn't look. I shuffled these pretty well. Then the Brigands. That's good news for us. Let's get to it. All right, so first up is the Stoneheart. Let's look at her ability cards again. We have Backswing and Balance Strike. Let's go ahead and use Backswing because we haven't used an ability that expends a fate token. We'll do that now. We'll use Backswing, which is another strength-based attack. 1 wound if we hit, a wound and a push if we crit, and then it can hit other enemies in the zone that we're in. We only have 1 enemy in this zone, but he's baned, so it'll be an attack roll at advantage. Let's go ahead and expend the fate that we need to. So you can see that one is grayed out now. And we'll go ahead and roll twice. When you have advantage on any kind of action roll, you get to roll twice and keep the higher one. This is a roll at +2 because it's based on strength. Let's see how it goes. There's one is a 12, the other one is a 9. So we'll have the 12 or a 14. And that is definitely going to hit. Let's go ahead and roll our damage die, which for the Stoneheart is a D8. And we've got a 1. So no crit, but we will hit. And if we hit with the backswing, we get to inflict 1 wound on this character. And once you attack them with advantage after using Bane, then the token is discarded. So these are, most of the time, it's a one-time thing if you have a condition inflicted. That'll be the same for the weaken effect on this other enemy over here on the right. Once he attacks with, once you roll a defense roll against his attack at advantage, he will lose that condition. Okay, so we have another action we can do, which I think, as I mentioned just last turn with Wildshell, we can't use the same ability twice, except for Curse, but since that's the case, we'll have to just use our Balanced Strike. So another strength-based roll for her. And here we go. All right, so we've got a 4 plus 2, which is a 6. We're actually going to miss because we were trying to get the target number of 9 there. So the second attack from Stoneheart is going to miss. Next up, we have the Nightfeather. And let's see again what we can do with Nightfeather. We have Piercing Strike and a Taunt. Taunt, we only inflict damage on a critical. That's actually the same for Piercing Strike, but if the attack hits, after resolving the effects, the target can be placed in the same zone as this hero. Which is interesting. It's almost as if there's no range on that, so I'm not sure how that would work exactly. If this attack hits, after resolving the effects, the target can be placed in the same zone as this hero. Okay, so it seems like maybe we can change our range at some point, because I want to understand how you could attack in another zone. Anyway, we'll see. Let's go ahead and attack twice. We'll use Taunt once, we'll use Piercing Strike. Let's start with Piercing Strike because the target is the only enemy in the zone. Add +2 to the damage roll. That might be able to take out this particular Brigand who's already wounded. So we're using a Dex-based ability. So we'll go ahead and roll and add 2 to that. All right, so we've got a 4 and that's a 6. So that's not going to do it. Our first attack is a miss. And a miss, we can actually move, but the rules state that you don't have to do any of the particular things attributed to an ability, hit or miss or crit, if you don't want to. So we'll just stay put and then we'll attack again with Taunt because, again, our range is 0. Looking for a 9. What do we have? Another 4 plus 2 is 6. So the Nightfeather is not doing so well. He's going to peace out. And because of Taunt, it doesn't allow us to move the way that Piercing Strike does on a miss. We're just going to have to stay put right there for now. That's it for Nightfeather's turn. Let's see what Wildshell can do. All right, so we'll move our ghost tokens around, and we'll get to put a couple more out. So we'll just put them back in the same place, because that's where the Brigands are. And then we'll go ahead and attack. I think we'll use Poltergeist, because that will allow us to push if we can. We'll do that one first and then Curse if we need to. So we're going to hit, or try to hit, with Poltergeist on the enemy that we're engaged with right there. So we're rolling with an Intelligence ability. Again, looking for a 9. This roll +2. What is it with the 4s? My goodness. Okay, so he's going to miss. Let's try another D20. Something about that one. This time it'll be a Curse. Okay, that'll miss as well because that's 6 plus 2. Not a great turn for our heroes. Not very good rolls there in round 2 here in Bardsung, but we're doing okay. So let's try again in a moment. Wildshell's turn is done. That's 2 abilities down, and it is now the Brigand's turn. So first and foremost, we'll start with the guy in the top right because he's highest and farthest north, and we'll go clockwise around. He will go ahead and hit an enemy in the same zone. That's first up on his trait card, as he is ferocious. And so we'll need to defend. But you remember, this particular brigand is weakened due to our curse from the previous round. So we get to roll this defense roll at advantage. Here's one. There's a 17. That'll probably do it. Another 17. Wow. And that's +3. So that is a unnatural 20 there. And so that hit is going to miss. We will remove weaken. He's no longer weakened. Not hit is going to miss. That particular attack is going to miss. Now, this next guy will attack as well. He's not weakened, so it'll be a straight roll. And it looks like he has 2 guys in the same space. So we will pick the one who had the highest initiative to attack, and that's going to be the Stoneheart. So here we go. Here's our defense roll. Her defense bonus is a 2. All right, and that's a 5. And we did not hit the target number, so she's going to get hit once again with her second wound card. Here we go. She's doing okay, though, because she has 5 hit points. And that'll end our second round of combat. All right, so I went ahead and shuffled up the cards, and you'll see here that our enemies are going first. So we'll do basically what we just did again, starting with our top right brigand there, as he is farthest north on the compass, and then we'll go clockwise. He is going to attack an enemy in his spot because he is ferocious. And we have to roll a defense roll. Our defense bonus is a 3. So here we go. Let's see what happens. All right, we've got an 18 plus a 3, 21. That is a miss. And we'll go same thing again because nothing has changed. The brigand will attack Stoneheart because, well, actually, we'll check the initiative order, but sure enough, Stoneheart is higher again. So let's go ahead and roll for her. Her bonus is a 2. And we got 17. Yeah, so the brigands aren't doing much. They're weakened. They've both been hit and wounded. They're nursing their wounds, so to speak, and they're just intimidated by our amazing party. So let's move on to our turns. First up is Stoneheart. Let's see if we can get a hit this time with any of our guys. We'll move down, and what should we do first? Why don't we go ahead and try the backswing again, because we'll get to expend another fate token and see what happens. Okay, so we're using strength. We have a +2 of strength, so we'll go ahead and roll our d20 and add 2 to it to see if we hit our target number of 9. What we have here, that is a crit. So you'll see the Bardsung symbol here is where the 20 is going to be. So we don't even have to roll our damage die to see if we crit. We automatically crit. So let's look at backswing, see what we do. We're going to do a wound and a push. So we actually don't even get to enact the push because that's going to be the second wound for the brigand, and he is going to be gone. So good turn. For another action, typically if there was another enemy in this zone, we could enact the same effects or apply the same effects, so to speak, to another enemy in the same zone, but we don't have that. That's something I'm excited to try with the backswing card. That's going to be neat. But we don't get to do that because we took out the brigand by giving him a second wound. So in order to move, with our second action, I think we'll move into this zone, start intimidating the last brigand. We'll move Stoneheart to the side to show that she's gone. And next up is Nightfeather. Let's see if he can finish the combat tutorial for us. He gets 2 actions on his turn, one of which will have to be a move in order to get into a space with 0 range. He's got to be engaged. So let's move on in there. Again, no limit to how many figures can be in a zone. And we will go ahead and roll. For one of these abilities, let's pick a piercing strike. It has the biggest chance to do wounds. It has 2 wounds. I guess it doesn't matter if we just have to crit on either one, but we can move out of the space for fun, just if we have something go wrong with a hit or a miss. So we'll go ahead and roll that piercing strike there. And if it's the only target in the same zone, we get to add +2 to the damage roll. But we got to hit first. Let's try that. +2 because of our dex. It's a dex-based ability. Piercing strike. Here we go. We need a 9. And we got 8. We missed. So second action of our turn for Nightfeather is a miss. But if we miss, we're able to dodge, which means we can move to an adjacent zone. We'll go ahead and just do that to show how the ability works. So we'll move Nightfeather over to the side. We'll go ahead and take Wildshell's turn. We'll take all the ghost tokens off. He can replace them. We'll just leave one there. Say we added one there in case that affects what we do. And let's do this. Let's go ahead and pick the curse card because we can enact a condition upon him possibly. And if that's the case, we'll be able to use our Soul Seer ability, which will replenish 1 fate. So let's go ahead and roll for him. We have an intelligence of +2, which we will add to this attack roll. So here we go. 2 actions. First one is curse. Here we go. All right, we got a 16. We're gonna make that an 18. And so that's going to hit. We don't necessarily do anything on a hit, although we do get to enact either Weaken or Bane. And let's add Bane so we get a little stronger of an advantage next time we attack him. And if that's the case, because of Soul Seer, we get to replenish a fate, which is great. And we'll move on to hopefully what will be, well, you know what? Actually, we have another action. We just use 1 action. We use Curse. So now we have a chance to take him out by using our second action by doing a Poltergeist. Let's go ahead and do that. Roll a d20. Looking for a 9. Oh, actually, and I don't think we actually went to crit. Let's roll and see if we crit. We missed that particular portion of Curse. So we're rolling a d4, and we have to get max damage at 4. We didn't. Yes, we don't crit for Curse, but let's see if we hit with Poltergeist. Got a 5 plus our 2 is a 7. We're not going to hit again. So that's it for this round. And we'll reshuffle again. All right, so here we are in what we hope to be our final round of marching order in the combat tutorial of Bardsung. We've got Stoneheart up first, then Wildshell, then Brigand, then Nightfeather. So first up is Stoneheart, and we've got 2 abilities we can do, Backswing and Balanced Strike. Let's go ahead and try our Balanced Strike. So we've got a roll. We'll add 2. There we go. We hit with a 17. Let's go ahead and roll our damage die to see if we crit. We have a 50% chance of critting. But you know what? We hit. We'll enact 1 wound, and this character will be taken out. But I did just remember that they're baned, so we can roll again in case we auto crit. But it's even better. We're going to hit a dirty 20, unnatural 20, and we'll see if we crit. We did. We matched their toughness here, so it's an auto crit. We would deal 2 wounds. We're just mangling up this poor brigand, and he's gone. So there you have it, friends. That is the first experience we have with Bardsung. That's the combat tutorial. A great way to get your feet wet on this awesome, awesome game. I look forward to doing a little bit more. I'll go to the exploration tutorial in a moment and record that and put it up soon. And it'll be fun. But yeah, thanks for checking out Bardsung. If you think I missed anything, any rules, goofs, go ahead and put them in the comments. I'll add them to the description of the video. And we'll make sure we learn this game well and right together. Thanks so much for watching. Leave a like and subscribe and hang out for more. All right, this has been Nathan for Xavier Game, and we'll see you soon. Bye.